Imagine you're sound asleep in your home, and suddenly, the entire city is rocked by massive explosions. This isn't a movie scene. This was the reality for the people of Caracas, Venezuela. On the night of January 3rd, the country behind these explosions was the United States. But the shock didn't end with the bombing. In a stunning move, the U.S. military arrested Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, flying them directly to America. Now, arresting the sitting president of a sovereign nation and taking him abroad is an extraordinary event. So, what was the official reason? The United States accused President Maduro of a grave crime, allowing a staggering 70% of all narcotics and illegal substances entering the U.S. to be smuggled directly from Venezuela. This wasn't a small operation. Over 150 military aircraft and ships were involved, plunging the entire country into complete chaos. As you watch the scenes of that night, with fire and smoke filling the sky from people's windows, the timeline is almost unbelievable. The first explosion hit at 12:50 a.m. within just 3 hours. The president and his wife were gone. You might be surprised to learn this isn't the first time something like this has happened. Just 35 years ago, the U.S. arrested the president of Panama on very similar drug smuggling charges. According to the U.S. Attorney General, both Nicolas Maduro and his wife will now face trial in an American court. But how could an operation this swift and decisive even be possible? Whispers and reports are emerging that the Venezuelan army chief himself may have supported the United States. Many believe that overthrowing a president this quickly would have been impossible without high-level assistance from within Venezuela's own military. So, the big question is, why did this happen? What's the real story behind the headlines and explosions? The primary and biggest reason can be summed up in one word: oil. You might think the largest oil reserves are tucked away in Arab countries, but that's a common misconception. The world's largest proven oil reserves belong to Venezuela. We're talking about approximately 303 billion barrels, which is nearly 17.5% of the world's total supply. With a resource this valuable, it's no surprise that powerful nations are constantly watching this country. The proof of this is in the timing. Just hours before the attack, on the night of January 2nd, President Maduro appeared on state television. Who was he meeting with? Chinese diplomats. This public display clearly signaled his growing alignment with China and Russia, two of America's biggest rivals. And just a short while after that meeting, the attacks began. The reaction within Venezuela itself has been deeply divided. Some citizens have called the attack a national tragedy, an invasion of their sovereignty. But on the other side, opposition groups and their supporters have been celebrating in the streets, claiming that their country has finally been liberated. This follows a pattern we've seen before. First, protests are organized and funded. Then, the sitting president is removed from power. And often, the public offers very little resistance, worn down by instability. It's a common method used to orchestrate a change in government. With this in mind, many are looking at Iran, where protests are ongoing, and wondering if it could be next, especially after the United States warned that no protesters should be harmed. Let's dig a bit deeper into the geopolitics. Russia and China weren't just visiting Venezuela. They were frequently in touch, and were even making preparations to build military bases there. So, besides the immense oil wealth, this move to prevent rival military footholds was another major factor behind the attack. Ironically, the same President Maduro who was just arrested had, at one point, been supported by the United States, but he later refused to follow U.S. directives and began pivoting toward China and Russia. It's a clear sign that the world is slowly but surely moving away from traditional diplomacy. International bodies like the United Nations and the Security Council seem to exist mostly in name only. In today's world, it feels more and more like power decides everything. Might makes right. Before the military action, the U.S. had already imposed over 900 sanctions on Venezuela. But these sanctions didn't completely isolate the country. Russia, Iran, and even India continued to buy Venezuelan oil, often at discounted prices. Meanwhile, Russia and China were getting dangerously close to establishing those military bases. For decades, the United States has viewed Latin America as its backyard, operating under the assumption that these nations would never align with anyone else. When that assumption began to crumble, the United States didn't hesitate to act with overwhelming military force. To truly understand this complex situation, let's take a closer look at Venezuela itself. Its official name is the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. It's a nation in South America renowned for its massive oil reserves, but also for its stunning natural beauty and rich culture. It has a population of about 34 million people and shares borders with Guyana, Brazil, and Colombia. With a long coastline along the Caribbean Sea and the Atlantic Ocean, its location is strategically important. Despite its oil wealth, Venezuela is tragically one of South America's poorest countries. The people speak Spanish, a legacy of long colonial rule. Most citizens live in extreme poverty. The biggest reason for this economic collapse is the crushing weight of U.S. sanctions, which have crippled Venezuela's economy for years. This didn't start with the recent invasion. Back in 2015, President Obama imposed sanctions and officially recognized Juan Guaido as the interim president, effectively siding with the opposition. In response, President Maduro cut all diplomatic ties with the U.S. and expelled American diplomats. Why? Because embassies are often the primary centers of intelligence and espionage operations. By shutting down the U.S. embassy, Maduro's government was trying to cut off a major channel of influence. Soon after that, the economic collapse accelerated. The opposition organized constant protests, fueling instability. But the root issue, the one that never goes away, is the oil. In times of war or global crisis, oil is the most critical resource you can have. By taking control of Venezuela, the U.S. would secure access to the world's largest oil reserves for the foreseeable future. The capital, Caracas, is the nation's largest city and its economic hub, nestled beautifully among mountain ranges. But in recent years, this nation has been bleeding its most valuable resource, its people. More than 7 million Venezuelans have fled the country, creating one of the largest refugee crises in the world. Let's look at the staggering numbers. The country's GDP is around $92 billion. The average annual income is just $3,100, a sharp drop from $5,000 back in 2012. An unbelievable 94% of the population lives below the poverty line. Malnutrition is rampant, affecting 32% of people, and a horrifying 60% are forced to survive on reduced food rations. The currency, the bolivar, is the weakest in the world. $1 is equivalent to about 4 million bolivars. A kilogram of chicken can cost 20 million bolivars. It has gotten so bad that the cost of printing the currency is now more than the value of the note itself. People have resorted to weighing stacks of cash instead of counting it. Despite the hardships, Venezuela is a land of deep faith and culture. About 71% of the population is Roman Catholic, with 17% Protestant and smaller communities of other faiths. And the natural beauty is simply breathtaking. Venezuela is home to Angel Falls, the world's highest waterfall, standing at 979 meters. The drop is so long that the water often evaporates into mist before it even reaches the ground. The country is also home to Mount Roraima, a unique flat-topped mountain that inspired the home of the gods' legends. And then there's Los Roques, a breathtaking island paradise that could be a massive tourist hub in a stable world. The city of Coro, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, dates back to the era of Columbus, and in the vast plains of Los Llanos, you can find the world's largest rodent, the capybara, and the gigantic anaconda. This country has so much potential, but today, traveling in Venezuela is extremely dangerous. Shortages of water, electricity, food, and medicine are a part of daily life. The story of Venezuela is a tragic one, a mix of immense wealth, political turmoil, and human suffering. Friends, that brings us to the end of today's deep dive. It's a complex and fascinating story with no easy answers. We'd love to hear what you think. Please let us know in the comments below. And if you found this video informative, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks for watching.